It is high time that I cover Elsa's grandfather, King Runeard, and why he had such disdain for magic. Hello friends and family members, as always you have McGann, and welcome to the Fangirl, where every little detail is a clue for a bigger story. If you haven't seen Frozen 2, then I have no idea why you clicked on this video, but if you've never heard the name King Runeard, it's the briefly shown father to King Agnar, who was Anna and Elsa's father. We don't get to see a lot of his backstory, but what we do know is that he built a dam for the Northuldra, which is this tribal people who live communally with elemental spirits. Now, this dam was presented like this great gift to be an olive branch so that the North and the South could make peace together. However, in reality, that was a trick. What King Runeard really wanted was for the Northuldra to become faithful, reliant servants to the crown. And by giving them a dam, he could hinder the water flow to the enchanted forest, which in turn would impede on the Northerners' ability to survive on their own. And it feels like this strangely heavy-handed message about not relying too hard on the government, but I don't think that's the actual intention. Subtle political agenda aside, King Runeard's motives were not to grow the population of his own kingdom, but to crush a community of magic users. His exact quote was,
"The Northuldra follow magic, which means we can never trust them.
Grandfather?
Magic makes people feel too powerful, too entitled. It makes them think they can defy the will of a king."
And there seems to be a lot of deep-rooted issues mixed in with that because the Northuldra aren't really part of the Arendelle kingdom, they're the northern part of Norway. So, of course the people might ignore the will of the king, it's not their king! And because that statement makes so little sense when you really think about it, that means that King Runeard's hatred of magic has to be about something else. It's more like a personal vendetta type of thing, but why? Oh, well, remember in 2017 where I did that video on where Elsa's powers came from? If you don't remember, go check that video out. It was very strong in my opinion, with translations from the actual book that King Agnar reads in the movie. But long story simplified, that translation basically says that a royal of Arendelle was given ice magic after a drop of moonlight hit him on the head. Now it's true that could all be some ancient Arendelle fairy tale because Frozen 2 certainly doesn't reference any such royal, but I still think that we can reconcile that book's translation with Frozen 2. Physically looking at that book, it was clearly created with a printing press, meaning it's not very old. The printing press started getting popularity in the 1600s, and the original Frozen movie is set in 1839, and we can clearly see that that book is in great condition. It's not like some decrepit scroll falling apart. Plus, the pages aren't all yellow or torn up, so it's very likely that that book is younger than King Agnar. And even though I can't pinpoint the date of publication for this fictional book, it does show us that King Agnar truly believed that this was a book of like Arendelle history and not a book of fantasies. Also, Agnar didn't really open the book like he was trying to read the story and get the information. He was really scrolling through just to get the map to the trolls. And since Agnar was confident that that map was still current, it implies that what was written in that book were either things that Agnar experienced firsthand, or he knows them very well because they're part of the royal family history. And we can also prove that Agnar heard the spirit voice calling to him.
There was this voice.
See that? But even though Frozen 2 was kind of sketchy with the details on who all can hear what, the fact that Elsa asked the fire spirit if he hears that calling too, it really implies that everybody else isn't hearing as they're walking around minding their own business. So as a teenager, the cave of Ottohallen was calling to Agnar, even though we have no idea why. But that small moment proves that the book Agnar was reading was really authentic, because Agnar himself was connected enough to the magic that he heard the mystical singing too. So to try and tie this all together and better understand King Runeard's issue with magic, the fact that that book says a royal of Arendelle gives us an entire sub-story. You see, the thing that most movies don't explain to us Americans is that the royal family is not just the king, the queen, and their children. The royal family can stretch well beyond the palace walls, because if a king has 4 children, odds are only one of them will ever be king, so what happens to the other 3? Well, in many situations, a king's child who is not in line for the throne will go off to another country to marry one of the other royal princes or princesses, and that can really help keep the peace, because you are a lot less likely to go attack another country if your sister is the queen of that nation. In other instances, a prince or princess might drop their royal title to take an oath with a religious faction, so they would become nuns or holy men or maybe vie to be the pope, and that was considered a perfectly valid, if not sometimes strategic, plan for an extra prince or princess. But what about everyone else? What about all the other royal children who don't marry abroad and don't become religious leaders? They don't just stop being princes or princesses because their eldest sibling ascended to the throne, and in many cases, even the grandchildren of the king are given the title prince and princess even if they have no chance of ever claiming the throne. And that's where you end up with like royal dukes and royal duchesses, and after a few generations you got a whole mess of royals living outside the palace. And if we look around at the rando extras in Frozen 2, there are definitely a few of them that look like they spun off of Agnar's family tree. Now, what does this have to do with anything? Well, I took the time to explain all of that because the wording in that book translates to a royal, not the king or the crown prince. So the person who got hit with the drop of moonlight was not likely in line to take the throne. And while Agnar did not seem to have any siblings, what we do know about the Arendelle royal tree is that it went like King Runeard begat Agnar, who begat Anna and Elsa. And that's okay enough for the story in the movie, but what about before that? Buckle in, folks, because my theory is that King Runeard's father was the one with ice magic. And yes, I know in most cases that would mean that King Runeard's father was also the king, but I don't think that's the case here. And for the sake of making this sound less complicated, I'm just gonna call King Runeard's father Bob, I don't know. Now, Bob's brother was the king of Arendelle, let's call him King Joe. So Bob and Joe grew up together, they loved each other as siblings do, and they were raised to understand that Joe would ascend to become the king one day, and Bob would be his undying supporter. But then Bob got bopped in the head one day with moonlight, and he caught ice magic. Well, now what? Suddenly Bob, who was born to be the spare, the second fiddle, is doing the impossible and figuring out who he is as an individual for the first time ever. And during this time of figuring out his ice magic stuff, I would say that Bob got married and he had Prince Runeard. Because remember, even if Bob isn't the one taking the throne, Prince Bob's son is still gonna be a prince too. And I would guess that much like Elsa, Bob tried to play his part in society, but he just really couldn't keep it up long term. You just don't fit in kissing boots when you can go whew, and turn the whole place into a snowstorm. So what was now completely natural to Bob was being deemed too dangerous by the kingdom. He was too much of a wild card. And that would make a lot of friction between Bob and King Joe, because Joe wouldn't always be able to control his little brother like he expects to. So Bob ends up with the trolls to get his ice magic removed from his body. And I really, really, really hope that Bob did that of his own accord, but looking at the illustration in the book where Bob is laying flat down and the troll is seeming to do something to him, that might be suggestive that King Joe took Bob in for help, whether he wanted it or not. All I'm saying is the trolls worked on Elsa and they didn't have her lay down, so suspicious to say the least. And that magic removal process may have even killed Bob, because it's very curious that Grandpappy can remove magic from the body, but he never even tries to take away Elsa's powers when she's a little girl. It wasn't even an offer on the table, so it feels like there might be a bad experience in there. But no matter what actually happened to the disgraced Prince Bob, I believe that King Joe never had a child, so he took on Prince Runeard as his heir and ward. And in that position, King Joe would be reminding Runeard daily that magic is so bad, my child. It's what took your father from us. It'll ruin your life. Magic is evil. It can't be trusted. This is my grooming motion for a child who's about the size of a parrot. But Prince Runeard was then molded by his uncle King Joe's intolerance. And that inevitably led Runeard to take all this pent-up hostility about his father and transfer it onto the Northuldra people just because they had a connection with magical spirits. And that kind of a backstory explains why King Runeard hated magic. That's why he hated magic users. That's why he wanted to destroy the enchanted forest. And that's also why Prince Agnar could hear the spirits calling to him, because he was carrying magical genes in his body. That magical DNA mixed with Iduna's magical DNA, and bam! Magical baby Elsa. By the way, I do really believe that Iduna had magical powers too, and I've already done a whole video explaining that. But that, my friends, is my version of the convoluted history of Arendelle. It might not be reality, but let's see you come up with a better explanation. Should I derpy sing today? I don't know. I still don't think I know any of the newer songs. I already did the Into the Unknown. Into the Unknown. Into the Unknown. Almost had enough oxygen for that. Oh, I got it. Let me just get more comfortable here. Where the north wind meets the sea, there's a river full of memory. Sleep, my darling, safe and sound. When all is lost, then all is found. I know, it's so great not. Are you satisfied with your derps today? Because I have been recording for almost an hour straight. I could not seem to get any of my wordy words out of my mouthy mouth, so I kept having to change my liney lines. But I did it. It's done. The Pod Squad had some fun. There's nothing to it when you do it. Yay, Pod Squad. Yay, us. Yep, you can really feel that I live with a 3-year-old, can't you? Anyways, my darlings, now that the camera's shaking and hating me, I am going to thank you all for watching and tell you that I love you so much, and we will see you next time, my dear, dear family members. Hello, friends and family members. That was wonderfully pleasant. R.I.P. headphone users. We don't get to see a lot of his backstory, but what we do know is that he built a dam from the... I'm so like, it's almost like my saliva is chunky today. Am I going? Did I get it? I feel like way too close. Then I also feel like, I feel like the microphone can't even reach me out here. What can I do other than hold you? Ah! Just grab the clacker with my toes. All right, let me try something. Ah! Crap. Ba-da-da-da. Nope, we are unplugged. Ba-da-da-da-da. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. Ba-da-da-da. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Charge! Okay, let's finally get this synced up. Sunken up, sunken down. You'll never know your way around. Well, family members, we're almost done, but I want to invite you to hang out with me in some other places. I'm on Twitter and Instagram as my own personal self, and I have a Facebook page too, but I mostly just post photos over there. And sometimes people say, hey McGann, I want to mail you something. How do I do that? Easy. Just click the About tab on my channel page, and my most current P.O. Box info will be right there. I also run another channel, The Family. It's really a hodgepodge channel where we might post anything. Oh yeah, and I also sell shirts and stickers and stuff with the Family and the Fangirl logos. If that is your cup of tea, I have a link in every description of every video. Finally, if you want to help out the Fangirl channel and make sure I'm putting out video essays for years to come, the best way you can help is by subscribing and watching more of my videos, whether they're new, old, whatever. Maybe even share one or two on social media, help spread the word. episode. People who watch to the end of videos like you helps to tell the site, hey, this is a good video, we should recommend it to other people. So if you made it this far, leave me a comment of something like, hey, I made it to the end. Love ya. See you next time, family members. Bye.